Now, between Naked Lunch and the Nova Express ticket that exploded period, what happened to the process of writing?
Well, principally the cut-up method,
right,
which was Brian's idea, and I applied it with great enthusiasm, and I think in some cases carried it too far. Writers can get carried away by a technique, and what they can do with this technique and carry it so far that they lose their readers. And I think this happened to some extent in those three books, The Ticket That Exploded, Nova Express, and The Soft Machine. Yes. There were many additions to The Soft Machine.
I have...
So that the, let's see, between the English and the American edition, I think there's about 30 or 40 extra pages in the complete edition, the British edition.
The British is complete? Oh, I didn't know that. Oh.
And when I told the Burroughs Press, who was about to reissue the book about this, they just weren't interested at all.
Really?
No.
Oh, I'll talk to
well, they
about
felt
that,
you know, people were used to one version, and to say that this contains new material is not particularly an inducement.
Wrong.
Well, that was their attitude anyway, so I just said, well, we'll forget it.
Are they reprinted yet?
Oh, yes, this was some time ago.
Oh, this was some time ago. Okay, that was when Grove was floundering. But, well, first of all, when did you meet Brian? And how did you meet Brian?
I met Brian in Tangiers in 1954. He was giving an exhibit of his paintings at the Rembrandt Hotel. And I went to the exhibit. We talked a while, but we were not all congenial at that time. He subsequently opened a restaurant called the 1001 Nights, and I used to eat there occasionally with, it was very good food, and he had dancing boys, and he got a lot of very chic clientele. But I didn't get to know him at all. Right. It was only later in Paris that I ran into him in 1958. And then he showed me his pictures, and I really began to see his pictures. Right. He taught me how to see a picture. Then we became very close friends.
When you started doing the cut-up method, were there any political... There's a lot of discussion in, say, Nova Express about the word as virus and the necessity to destroy the word. What were the, if any, the political ramifications? Or were there?
Well, there are no political ramifications that could be put into, fitted into any party.
Right.
There's no affiliations with socialism, communism, or certainly not, or capitalism. There are no direct political affiliations.
Well,
the whole thing is a mess. That's the point. In that way, political, yes.
Well, you talked about the word as a method of control, and that the cut-up of the word in some way would get rid of the control. Do you still feel that?
Well, it's not completely at all. I mean, it's just may loosen up this automatic association of word and what the word refers to. Well, you get these vague words like communism and capitalism. You have as many definitions as there are people who use them. There's total confusion, and that confusion is largely verbal. I studied with Korzybski, the founder of general semantics and anti-Aristotelian logic. And he says that one of the basic errors of Western thought is either or. Something is either instinctive or intellectual, either hereditary or environment. This split, which of course does not exist, in fact, it's both and.
I know that at least part of your writing has been involved with non-dualistic systems. When did you get involved with Scientology?
That was around 68, around in there. I want to see what they what they had to say. Brian knew some of the early Scientologists, and he in fact had stayed with them in Algiers during the Civil War. So he told me about Scientology. He said they have this system they think will take over the planet, and he says it has a certain interest. He said they say it works. He said I wouldn't say that it works, I'd say that it does something. And that was my experience, yes. I went into it and became what they call a clear.
What's a clear?
Well, a clear is someone that, whose engrams have all been erased.
Right.
Engrams being words and images stored in periods of pain and unconsciousness, like in an operation. He said no one should ever talk during an operation because the patient is hearing it. And a negative comment can have very devastating results. Well, this actually has been borne out, and they have, they're playing back tapes. They found the person showed a great anxiety if there was something that keyed in.
Right.
Keyed in the operation, that is, even the sound of an instrument dropping or something of that sort, and words particularly. Really? So they have in many hospitals an absolute rule: no talking, no joking in the operating room.
This is probably another apocryphal story. I had heard, I think Miles told me, that you once disguised yourself as a plumber, went into the Scientology offices and stole some files.
Absolutely, without the slightest foundation.
I've heard a lot of apocryphal stories. You've also been involved in some other methods of training. The one I know about is a bit with Trungpa Rinpoche.
Well, no, I was not involved with Buddhism.
Right.
I know a little bit about it, and Alan is very much into it, but it doesn't attract me too much. I've never really practiced meditation. I did take a course with the S people.
You did?
Yeah, but it was already a splinter group in London. I forget who, but it's helpful. You get some interesting things from the...
From what, if any, other similar sources have you gotten information?
Well, those are the Scientology and S were the two, whatever you call them, systems that
systems, training schemes, I don't know.
went into.
When did your interest in Egyptology start?
Years ago. I've always been interested in the idea of a pictorial language. I remember I took, and I was staying in Chicago, when I was living in Chicago in 1943 or 44, I started to take a course in Egyptian writing. And I did get some distance with it. I had Gardner's Egyptian grammar and wrote out these exercises. Very interesting, because it can be read immediately. It doesn't have the same linear quality. In
the most recent book, The Western Lands, which I've only, I must say, partly read so far, in the middle of, it seems to me to be somewhat a meditation on death, based on a lot of the old Egyptian schemas. How helpful do you actually find that information?
How what?
Helpful. Do you actually find that? I mean, how seriously?
I think it's quite a helpful concept, the seven soul concept. Explains a lot. Of course, it's obvious that there's not much unity, but see, you have seven souls, and their interests at some point are irreconcilable. They do not have the same interests. This creates difficulties.
Would that be a sort of more complicated schema of when you talked a little about RM and about the centers that in which we oppose ourselves, we stop ourselves from, I'm not putting this very clearly, stop ourselves.
Well, yes, you would say that the existence of entities with divergent interests
right.
is going to make someone seem to be self-defeating in many instances.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to get is there seems to have been a major change in your work between the Nova Express period and the later books, both stylistically and in terms of preoccupation. That in the Nova Express books you were being concerned with cut-up, you were also concerned with attacking various systems of control, both political in terms of the RM or whatever, the ways, and politically in terms of the use of word to control. And after that, say in The Wild Boys, and later on, the novels stylistically became more narrative, but more important for me, you seem to be concerned with how humans could get out of the predicament in which they were in. And at what caused that change in preoccupation, first of all?
Well, that would be too complicated even. You know, what causes a change in of that sort usually does not have a definite answer. But given the change occurring, then the content will dictate a straight narrative.
Right.
If you're talking about pirates or guerrilla bands, you have to preserve a line of straight narrative in order to present your material.
Did you feel at all that the cut-up wasn't working? I mean, because obviously things change as environments change, and politically and historically, the United States and the Western world has changed greatly since '58 and the early '60s. Did you feel that the cut-up was no longer viable?
Not necessarily. It's a technique.
Right.
And like any technique, it works here and it doesn't work somewhere else, that's all.